Board members. Hello everyone, welcome to the Delaware Academy Board meeting. I'm President Elizabeth Hunke, and we are going to begin the open session with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a few presentations this evening, and we'd like to start with the FFA 2020 National Superior Chapter Award. Mrs. Tina James Minor, Mark Klein, and Lindsay Wright are here to tell us all about their wonderful chapter.
So this year at the National FFA Convention, we will be receiving a National Superior Chapter Award. This award, 27 pages of documentation or something like that. It's a real crazy application. Lindsay and Brooklyn Knox set about putting together a program of activities last year that really rivaled what other chapters were doing in the state. And as a result, they decided to apply for the Superior Chapter Award. Goes out for state judging. We were ranked 10th in the state, and then we went on out to national competition, and this summer we were told that we were awarded a 1-star level Superior Chapter Award, which is less than 2% of the chapters in the United States are awarded that. So, thank you.
The board members on behalf of myself and the FFA for everything that you've done. So I would like to thank the board members on behalf of myself and the FFA for everything that you've done to make us accomplish so much. Thank you.
Okay. For our next presentation, we will be getting a proclamation for the 200th anniversary of Delaware Academy, and our Assemblyman Brian Miller is here to give us this proclamation. Yes.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for allowing me to be here to present this 200th anniversary of Delaware Academy proclamation. We were supposed to do it last year during graduation because that was the graduating class that celebrated the 200th year, but we all know that COVID has changed our lives. It's changed our lives not only during a board meeting as we're enjoying tonight with the filming and everything and being virtual, but it's changed our lives in many, many ways with education and probably how education is going to be handled over the next few years. You know, I had the opportunity to come down and meet with the Superintendent Zimmerman before I was after I was taken down.
It was right after you got the well, yeah.
But I'll tell you a little bit about COVID and what it did to me, and I like to tell this story because there's still some people out there who think this isn't really real. Well, I came down with the virus on March 23rd, and I was put in the hospital that night, and the next night I was put on a ventilator for 14 days, and I spent 33 days of my life in ICU. And I can't say enough about the nursing staff and the physicians that I had during that stay. They became my family, because we all know that we were all in quarantine and lockdown. But being a patient in the hospital, I couldn't see my family. I didn't see my family for 2 months. But I spent 33 days in the ICU because of the COVID virus. Then when I left the hospital, I could only walk 3 steps. I had lost over 50 pounds, and I was a physical mess, but I was alive. I couldn't breathe. I was still on 50 liters of oxygen at the time. Then I went to rehab for a month, and I was in rehab another month at home. But with all the great care, and I gotta thank everybody for their thoughts and prayers, because without everybody's thoughts and prayers, I wouldn't be here. I'm a lucky man. So COVID's changed my life, but it's changed the school's lives, the kids' lives. And during this, and we're gonna talk about the proclamation, but I'd just like to talk about the governor's withholding of 20% from the foundation aid. I wrote a letter to the governor before you guys sent a letter to me, stating that we need to get this 20% restored to the schools, because we asked you to send our kids back to school. I have a 16-year-old who's a junior at Sequoia Valley Central School, and guess what? He needs to go to school, okay? Virtual learning's he's not cut out for that right now. He's not mature enough. But we asked the schools to come out and put school back together the best you can. And then the governor withholds 20%, and we asked for that to be restored. So I'm 100% behind everybody here. My wife's the president of the Sequoia Valley Board of Education. So dinner at my house is always very, very interesting, because we talk about how school boards conduct their business in finance the schools. I'm probably taking more time than I should, but it's a lot different than I expected, and we have some pretty good discussions on it. But anyways, I'd just like to thanks for listening to me. This proclamation is from Assemblyman Cliff Crouch and myself. It's to proclaim the 200th anniversary of Delaware Academy down here. This is a wonderful school. You've got a lot of great things going on. One of my favorite parts of the school, and I probably shouldn't say this, is the FFA program. I've always been very lucky to come down and tap trees and see what goes on. And I have a neighbor that's also part of the school family here. But this is for the academy. Please put it on the wall and wear it proudly. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Assemblyman Miller, on behalf of Delaware Academy, just to show our thanks and gratitude truly for the endless hours of advocacy that he works at the assembly level and at the state level on behalf of not just our school district, but our community and our region. And the fact that he was in my office within a week of my starting was really impressive, because he was that interested and that dedicated to ensuring the continued success of our district. So on behalf of Delaware Academy, I also brought syrup. And this is from our FFA. And we also have, of course, it wouldn't be COVID without some Bulldog hand sanitizer. Yes. So this is for you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And for our next presentation, Mr. Kurt Mabel is here to give the 2020 School Excellence Safety Award.
Thank you very much for inviting me tonight, Kelly. My name is Kurt Mabel. I'm from the Robert Mabel Agency. Represent the Utica National Insurance Company, and each year they hand out school safety excellence awards to school districts that participate in basically safety awareness and emergency planning. And this year the Delaware Academy Central School District attained the titanium level, which is the highest level of school safety out there. So here today to present the award to the academy. Thank you very much.
So Kurt, I would also shake your hand, but I just shook Assemblyman Miller's hand, and we need to watch those points of contact. But also on behalf of Delaware Academy and your service to our district, both of you international, serving our district, but also our community. We're also sharing with you one of our bags, complete with syrup and Bulldog hand sanitizer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, our next presentation is our comprehensive school counseling plan, presented by Mrs. Cleveland, Mr. Albright, Mrs. Gregory, and Mr. Chase.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome, and we are going to talk to you about or present to you some information, a little snapshot from our advisory council that met about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and then also present to you our new guidance plan. However, tonight we're only going to present and highlight the changes to that guidance plan that you guys approved from last year. So. Data review, and the first up is me with elementary school. And so here is a little snapshot of what takes place in the elementary school in general: social emotional learning, individual counseling, and group counseling, and then of course classroom lessons. This year, because of some changes for COVID, the classroom lessons really takes over for that group counseling, as there's just not enough space to get 14 to 17 students or a classroom altogether for the group counseling that took place this last year. So this year in teaching, we'll see that later in all the classrooms. So this was the weekly individual counseling that took place this last year. You can see that this is all the grade levels that took place, and this is just those students who were recommended either by parents or IEP counseling or by teachers for individual counseling. And then on the next slide, you'll see a breakout. You'll see a breakout of all the different groups that were offered this last year and the number of students that participated in those groups. And this is all pre-COVID data, and so the information as far as like on the next slide, you might see some information that was what was going to come up next if we are able to go over and have our final 2 groups. And so like I said, this is why this school year we weren't allowed, or just space-wise, not allowed to offer those counseling groups in the same way. As you can see, with 54 students, 2nd through 5th grade that would sign up, and that was about the average, about 50 students per grade, or total, that were set up to take those counseling groups. And then pass to Alex.
So I'm the middle school counselor, and last year I worked with grades 6 through 8. And on a weekly basis, I see around 10 students on average. Of those 10, I had 7 what I deemed frequent flyers. And so they would be in sometimes multiple times a day, multiple times a week. And so I saw them a lot. And broken down even further, those 7 frequent flyers, one of them was a 6th grader, 4 were 7th grade, and 2 were 8th grade. So you can see that a large portion were that 7th grade class, which is now our current 8th grade class. And then I also had 3 IEP or 504 students that I met with weekly, and those were all completed as well. On top of the social emotional, I also did academic and career, and so we have periodic check-ins with students, which is grades, and see how things are going. And then towards the end of the year, around February, March, I started doing the individual planning meetings. Obviously, though, that got cut short when we had to go remote for COVID. So 2 of the big programs last year we ran that I just want to give you some information on and provide you with some data from is the first one is Above the Influence, and that was a new program we started last year, kind of based off of Sources of Strength with Cornell Cooperative. And we had 15 peer leaders, and they were selected by their peers. 3 adult advisors, it was myself, Mrs. Jackson, the art teacher, and Mr. West, the English teacher. And we would meet bi-weekly to plan and implement campaigns. And overall, it was pretty successful for our first year. But one of the big things we heard from the 8th graders was it needed to have clearer messaging. So this year, we're planning on doing that again. It's going to be remote, obviously. But we want to get that message out to the 8th grade team and 8th graders so they know more about the program. The other one was Bridges Mentoring, and that was 38 mentor-mentee participants. The mentors volunteered, and then the mentees were kind of chosen between teacher recommendation, counselor recommendation, and parents also asked for mentors. And we would have weekly meetings between mentees and mentors. They would meet during their study hall periods. And the big feedback we got was they'd like to do a large group event sometime throughout the year. Obviously, we can't do it this year. And they also wanted more common meeting time. So that's something we want to look forward as we go into this year and next year.
Last year, I worked with the 9th and 10th grade students. On the left-hand side of the screen, it shows the social emotional counseling throughout the school year up until March. About 12 students a week, and again, I had some frequent flyers, I think about 7, and the average 3 times a week they were coming in. For some of them, 3 times a day, depending on their needs, especially for the last year's 10th grade group. They need a lot of personal, social, emotional counseling. And I also met with 2 students weekly for IEP counseling. I did know, as I was looking at my data, that in December, early January, the numbers really spiked for personal counseling needs. The number of students coming in through the guidance office. My first year in high school, I don't know if that's unusual, but it makes sense to me that the time of year in New York State, right after the holidays, that will probably happen again this year. On the right side, I apologize, that should say academic, college, and career. So an average about 3 students per week for academic scheduling issues and concerns, and that was usually around the end of a quarter or end of the semester that I saw most of the students. I also co-taught a freshman seminar class with Mrs. Losi, and that lasted for the first semester of the school year. And in that class, we focused a lot on career and college counseling, services, and exploration. Also noting in my data that increased at those times of year. So also last year, I was the coordinator for Sources of Strength. I think you're all familiar with that program. We had about 84 peer leaders trained last year. Many were returning, but many were also new to the program. They were nominated by their peers. And we had about 14 adult advisors, and that included teachers, it included cafeteria staff, office staff. We tried to make that a very diverse group. Our first campaign that we did in the fall was the Trusted Adult campaign, and that went the end of November through December. Our students also did a staff presentation in October, just to give an overview of the program to our staff, and then another parent presentation in January, which I thought they did a very good job in both of those presentations. On the right is a list of all the meetings that we had throughout the school year. And down, you can see where we had to switch over when we went to quarantine. We tried to do monthly meetings, full group meetings up until that point. And then starting April 8th, we started doing weekly meetings. They were virtual meetings. participation really dropped off. So we started with about 17 students, and by the end of that, we were down to 2 or 3. So that was difficult.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Cleveland. I'm responsible for, or was responsible for the 11th and 12th grade last year. You'll see a little bit of shift on how the counseling has worked, starting with the elementary, working its way up to the high school. My numbers for the social and emotional counseling decrease, and that's the way we want to see it. Our hopes are to have a comprehensive program that starts in the elementary and works its way up to the high school and eventually to graduation, that their need for us is less. Although we love to see them all the time, but we really do want them to develop their skills to be successful on their own. However, with that said, there's always students who are going to need some support. I had 3 or so frequent flyers who came in 3 or more times a week. Like everyone else, that may have been a couple times a day, may have been a couple times a week. The topics that we talked about mostly were anxiety. You'll see a lot of that, or I see a lot of that in 12th grade as they prepare for the future. College and career, military work, whatever it is, their anxiety levels increase. So I spent a lot of time talking about anxiety and how to manage that. I had 3 students in weekly IEP counseling. A lot of that, we focused on the transitions of what will happen once you leave high school, go out into that world of work, whether it be college, military, whatever it is. For some students, it may be as simple as, how do you do your laundry? For other students, it would be a little bit more complex. How do I manage living in a dorm or being away from my mother or father? So a lot of my counseling is related to the transitions. Academic counseling is higher than Mrs. Gregory's, and I think you see that pretty typical for seniors or juniors as they are facing that graduation. They suddenly have the panic, oh no, I need to pass this class or I may not graduate. So I saw a lot of students last year in regards to what do we need to do? How are we going to do this? How are we going to make this through? Maybe a conversation with a teacher, it may be working on study skills, but there was about an average of 15 students. Parent meetings also increase. We do meet with every senior parent that has a child that is at risk of not graduating. Even if it's the tiniest risk, we do want to meet with those parents. So we had about 25 of those, and that's an average. Some of those parents may have been 2 or 3 times, but we did meet with about 25 of them. Like Mrs. Gregory, that did increase at the 5-week mark and a quarter, or as we got closer to graduation. College and career counseling, I spent a lot of time with my seniors. Last year there were 47 seniors, which is a smaller class. This year we have 66. I do think here at Delaware Academy, we spend a lot more time with individual students than I see with some of my colleagues in other school districts. For some seniors, it may be meeting every other day, talking about college or whatever the case may be. Some may be a little bit more prepared, but somewhere it's approximately 4 times of those 47 seniors. We focus on the future planning, as I mentioned. Last year, we were able to do some college trips to college campuses. We did Suco, Hardwick, Morrisville, Portland, TC3. Previous years, we've done other places like Albany, Colgate. We were able to visit some other places that may not be the case this year. One of the things that also happens in our office is college admissions counselors coming to our building, where they sit down with our students and talk about what that particular college has to offer. I find these sessions to be very helpful to students as they start to look at what does the world have to offer me. And they may learn that they don't want to go to that college, but they've learned something. So those individual sessions are very, very important. And again, groups of 5 or 10-ish, depending on the college, depending on what's going on that day. Of those college applications, we had about 42 students apply to anywhere between 3 and 8 colleges. Of those, we have transcripts, letters of recommendation, resume, student information, all of that is managed out of our office. I also put out a college selection process workshop for parents, where we go over how do you apply, how do you look for a career, what do you do in the world of work. We focus on financial aid as well. And that's it.
So now we're going to go over the change we made for this year's plan. I believe all we have a copy in your folders. Take those out, look at that. So a lot of the stuff stayed the same, with the exception of it having to be done virtually. But there were some changes we did make this year based on COVID and everything that's going on. So the first change you'll notice is on page 11. And this has to do with our individual progress reviews, these individual meetings we do with students. And the program that we got this year is My Learning. We're very happy to have it. And it's a system that allows us to put all of the information in one place. So we're not keeping paper copies, we're not keeping different folders in different places. We have all the information for students in one place, and we can keep their 4-year plan going with them all the way up through starting in 7th grade until they go up to seniors who graduate. So that's the big first change on page 11. The next page, on page 12, talks about our My Learning training implementation. So we've been attending PDs on My Learning, and we're still in the process of learning more about it. But recently, I went in last week to the 8th grade FCS class and did some career inventory stuff with them. And I'm planning on going in this week into 7th grade to doing some multiple intelligence type stuff with them, and then eventually getting in with the 6th graders. And Mrs. Gregory and Mrs. Clayton will also be using My Learning as well. On page 13, we are doing student lunch activities because it's the one place where we have all students together at one time. And so in the 6th grade, they've already started doing some second step curriculum with the students. And 7th and 8th grade, going in, checking in with them. Ms. Gregory has gone in and done some career stuff with the 10th and 11th. Yeah, 10th and 11th. So we're getting into the lunchrooms and working with those students in large groups. On the next page, 18, we have new student welcome and mindful moments. Page 14, that's easy? Page 14, yeah. So the new student welcome was different this year. Usually we do a new student welcome luncheon, but obviously we couldn't do that because of the guidelines. So we gave all new students a little welcome bag, and Ms. Gregory put together, they're very nice. But they had like different little items in them from Delaware Academy to kind of welcome them to the school. And we showed them around and introduced them to their teachers and to other students. We're also doing mindful moments. This is new ones. We started, I want to say like end of September. And what that is every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning, the announcements, we're getting on, and myself and Mrs. Gregory are doing like 2-minute mindful moment activities, whether it's like breathing exercise, reflecting on things you're grateful for, doing gratitude. So those are things we're doing every Monday, Wednesday, Friday with the students in school. And that's in the morning announcements. On the next page, so page 15, we're also doing remote student outreach, as we recognize that there's a lot of students that are remote only. And so the first thing we did about 2-3 weeks ago, all of the counselors sent out cards to all the students that were remote only. So they received that, and just letting them know we're thinking about them, and we're here if you need anything. And we're planning our next one. Not sure what that will be yet, but we're thinking about what we're going to do for our next outreach. And is this you? Yes. All right.
Mrs. Gregory said I could take my mask off if I was by myself. So thank you. This face needs to breathe. It's a good radio face. So page 29 starts the changes for the elementary school portion of the guidance plan. And the K-5 career lesson on awareness. The big change is then now we're going to enter that student data from into My Learning so that the high school counselor, middle school, high school counselors will be able to access that in grades 6 through 12. Currently, we are inputting things into Google Drive and moving that way, but we're trying to streamline that by all having it in one area for them. So that's the major change there. Everything else is the same. Page 30. The change is that the second step curriculum has been extended to second grade. As I said before, with the absence of the group counseling, focus groups, I am teaching in all the grade levels, and we have already had purchased kindergarten through second grade, second step curriculum. Mrs. Gregory had piloted the program in second grade for 1 year, and then found that just there wasn't time to do second grade with everything else as well. So second grade curriculum we already had, so each kindergarten through second grade is using that curriculum. And then on the next page, the addition is grades 3 through 5 have weekly class guides as well. So kindergarten through 5th grade, I've been added as one of the specials. So I teach a 40-minute class for each grade level, so 4 to 5 classes a day. And the 3 through 5 curriculum is varied. It's not one that's followed, so I draw from various materials that we've already had in-house, as well as some things that are accessible for free online. But everything will be mostly in the social, emotional, or academic areas as far as that goes. So, and that's it for the changes for us. And now I guess if you have any questions, we'll be happy to field those. All right, we've been free. Thank you.
No,
Oh, you do have a question. I thought you were leaving this out. We recognize trustee 8.
Yes, sir. Do we have any updates on the position from Bassett that was part of
Yes,
the counseling model?
yes. Lisa Montero is our new Bassett mental health counselor. She started in September, and she has already started working with students. She's working with students in grades kindergarten through 12th grade. She has an elementary office, as well as an office space down here. And she's working with students and families. So I know that on Mondays in particular, she has meets with a mom and then meets with the family together of elementary students. So we have a full-time person just in our district for that.
And how does that fit together with people that you meet with, you collectively as a team? And when do you know it's a Lisa thing or it's a, how is that?
I'll speak for myself, and if it's different for anyone else, they can add their differences. For things that would be long-term therapy or something, long-term therapy definitely, or something that would be outside the scope of personal, social, academic career, that type of counseling, we would typically refer to Lisa first because she's in-house. So if someone was dealing with a long-term eating disorder, that would be Lisa. At the elementary school, there is a particular dynamic that is creating like a long-term anxiety problem at home, that would be something that I would refer to Lisa. But generally, if it's a long-term mental health issue, that would be referred to Lisa.
That's not to say that we wouldn't be involved in some of it.
Correct.
We may, I know just recently, I may be working with a student that at some point I may decide they need the next level. In which case I will work with Lisa, we talk about things. I've gone with the student, sat down, introduced them, sat through a session with them, the warm handoff. And we do meet once a week, once every other week with the whole department, which includes Lisa and our school psychologist as well. So we do work together as a group.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Well, thank you very much to our school counseling team. We appreciate it. completely different direction. We will now have our annual audit report with the Sinar Company, and I'm not sure if there's maybe. Oh. Please, a momentary pause. Are they here? Oh, okay, all right, great. We'll do that. My apologies, they're not going to, they won't be here for a few more minutes. So we are going to go along with our Board of Education recognitions with a break for refreshments. So we'll be back in 15 minutes or so for the financial audit report. And Mrs. Zimmerman would like to speak.
So this past week was a Board of Education Appreciation or Board of Education Recognition Week. And you may find in every district they do that a little bit differently. A week ago Monday, I sent my sincere letter of gratitude and appreciation to this Board of Education. I have been in education for, this is my 23rd year. I've worked with many different boards. And I can honestly say that I have never had the pleasure of working with a board that is so cohesive, that is so professional, and that is so student-centered at the heart of every single decision that they make than before coming to Delaware Academy. So I wish that we could do more. You can see that their tables are peppered with pumpkins and gifts. Truly, when we shot out an email to both of our buildings, the response that we got from our students and from our staff was wonderful. So what you see on their tables here are in addition to the boards, are gifts from the high school, saying the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that little extra with a huge pack of extra gum. Of course, as a token of gratitude from our Future Farmers of America, we have a large bottle of syrup among a host of other things. We also have one of our classes, our creative writing class, who is giving them a Yoda Best card that I hope you'll pass around and share. And we have a computer science class who has a number of students who've made a number of different recognitions. And certainly we've had lots of sentiment from our elementary students as well. So on behalf of the entire district, I thank you for your years of service, your hours of service. This is all volunteer for those of you at home who don't know. I just can't express my gratitude enough. So as a last token, we are hosting a small reception just outside. You are all certainly welcome to join us back there if you would like to do that. Just please wear your mask. If you do opt to grab a snack to celebrate with us, we just ask that you step 6 feet away as you're enjoying that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, all set?
All right, everyone, we're coming back. Welcome back, everyone. So now we'll have our annual audit report by the Sinai Company. And welcome.
Hi. Are we live?
We are.
We are.
I'm Steven Spinner, I'm the owner of Spinner Company, and we did the audit for Delaware Academy and Central School at Delaware. And you have two documents in front of you, one is the executive summary, and one is the actual financial statement of the audit report. I'm only going to review the executive summary, it's a little more comparative information, and it explains the financial statements and our findings as what we did as part of the audit. Go to page 1, and that's actually page 3 on my document says, so we have audited financial statements of Delaware Academy. Our responsibility is to audit the financial statements and to review internal control as it pertains to the financial statements, because we rely on internal controls to prepare the financial statements. As part of that, we evaluate internal controls, and we categorize weaknesses into 4 categories. One is material control weakness, which the district had none. Another is the significant control deficiency, which the district did not have any. We have some control improvements that we have some findings in that category, and I'll review them quickly. A control improvement is something that, in our opinion, could avoid a problem down the road. The control improvement we identified for this year was inventory of fixed assets wasn't updated. Basically, every year you have the fixed assets updated with, I think it's industrial appraisal does yours, and the forms were not filled out and the report wasn't received back. And the cause is related to the New York State regulations for non-essential services being closed down during the COVID-19. So I don't expect that to be there next year. I hope it's not there next year. Capital project budget, this is a finding from 2019. There wasn't a budget put in there in the capital projects fund. And this year there was, so we cleared that finding. Journal entry for reserve funds, we take a sample of journal entries, and actually I flipped through all the journal entries to see all the documentation for them. And in last year, this is a 2019 finding, there was some that weren't supported. This year I looked through them all, and every single one was supported, so it was a good job by the business office. Capital projects for 2018. There's some capital projects in 2018 that were finished, appeared to be finished, and they were closed out of books. This year, all the projects were closed out, so we cleared the finding. One more compliance matter. In 2018, excess fund balance was almost 12%. And this year, I think it's just under 4%, so that finding is clear. Next page, page 5, qualitative aspects of accounting practices. This reviews the footnotes to the financial statement. Accounting policies that the district follows, governmental fund accounting standards as recommended by the State Controller's Office. So we check the records according to that. Governmental Accounting Standards Board requires those New York State fund accounting standards be accepted standards from the United States of New York. So you can follow GAAP, we prepared the GAAP statement. We looked at all the transactions, we didn't know any transactions that didn't follow those standards, and all significant transactions were reported. Significant accounting estimates, we have 4 significant estimates. Liability for compensated absence is based upon payroll software's calculation of sick days and vacation time, and what we do is take a sample of those people and those calculations. Take everything back to the contracts and make sure they're being recorded correctly. We didn't find any mistakes there. Management's estimate of capital assets, depends on the appraisal report updated in 2016. This year we updated last year's report to get numbers. We did the additions and updated the depreciation schedule since we didn't have a report, but we're still happy with the number we came up with. Other post-employment benefits, that's an accrued liability based upon an actuarial report. So we paid the actuary to come up with that number. I think it was $33 million, I think the total was. The value of proportionate share of retirement system plan assets, we get that from the state retirement funds and we incorporate that into the GASB report on the financial statements. Financial statement disclosures, they're significant. Pension plan for teachers, that's one of the footnotes. Over the page, next page, post-employment benefits, that's in the footnotes. We had no difficulties in performing the audit. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements, we categorize these in two categories. One, adjustments to fund accounting that we give adjustments to business office staff and they agree with them and book them. We had two adjusting journal entries, one report transfers between funds and another one to clear out some revenues related to E-rate and summer handicap programs that were on the books for a long time. So we wrote them off this year. These other adjustments are the adjustments we use to reconcile your fund accounting to GASB accounting and prepare the financial statements. We had no disagreements with management. We had management representation letter. Managements can seek a second opinion with other independent accountants. To our knowledge, that has not happened. Other accounting findings and issues, all the findings and matters that we investigated are disclosed in this document. There's nothing between us and management that the audit committee doesn't know. Go to page 8. And this is a summary of our audit opinions. We have an unmodified opinion on the basic financial statements, which is doesn't need to be modified for any reason. We looked at internal control with respect to government auditing standards, and we had no instances of non-compliance with those standards. The next one is a report on compliance with respect to single audits if there's a major program. This didn't apply to you since your federal awards were under the threshold. We had 559,000 of federal awards and the single audit threshold is 750. One more report is the extra classroom activity funds. It's an unmodified opinion, but this was on a cash basis. It's not GAAP. Next year, that opinion will change to a qualified opinion because it's not on an accrual basis. So that's a change for next year. Next page, page 9, is government funds balance sheets. This is the typically the fund accounting. The total assets almost $8 million. Total liabilities almost 1.9 million. Total fund balance for the general fund $6 million. And we have all your restrictions, assignments, and encumbrances. The total unassigned fund balance is $790,000, which is under 4% of the subsequent year budget. School lunch, you have a balance of $73,000 in the school lunch fund, which is very good. Special aid fund, you have a little bit in there. Capital projects, that negative account balance is a normal balance. As you spend money or borrow funds for projects, you spend down the balance. So, 1.2 million negative. Debt service, the district is setting aside money for debt service to, pay off liens and bonds if they come due. You have about $4 million, almost $5 million in that fund. Next page, page 10, is revenues and expenditures, and this is also on a fund balance, the fund accounting format. Total revenues from the general fund, $19 million. 8.9 million of that comes from state sources, and about 9.7 million comes from property taxes and other tax items. The other tax items are the STAR program and pilot programs and stuff like that. That was 1.1 million. School lunch, $407,000. That might be down from last year because of the shutdown. Total expenditures in the general fund, 18.3 million. Received $438,000 from the endowment funds. You transferred about $1 million out into debt service and some aid to the school lunch fund. And that's basically what happened with the funds. Page 11 is a comparison of all the funds for the last 5 years. So this is the fund accounting statements, comparing one year to the next. And you can see the numbers are pretty consistent. Your fund balance in 2016 was $7 million, and in 2020, you're at $9.6 million. And all your little restricted funds, you can see the progression over the years. But, you can see debt service fund is steadily increasing, increased a lot this year. Retirement contributions, you're putting money away for that. And the rest of the reserves are pretty standard. Next page is page 12. Same presentation, fund accounting, revenues and expenses. Total revenues for all funds, $20.3 million. Compared to 19, it was $20 million. So your revenues, you can see over the years, has been pretty consistent. Your excess over the fund balance has been always a positive number. That's good for a school district. And transferred from the endowment funds, looks like it's 2016, you only took $129,000 out of that fund. Now you're taking $438,000, a little less than last year. Those other changes in fund balance, that $52,000 is the E-rate and some things that were adjusted from last year, from prior years. Page 13 is the graphs. On the left-hand side, you can see everything as a percentage of the total for 2020. And on the right-hand side, you can see the numbers, the actual dollar numbers as they've been increasing over the year. Revenues, you can see, is pretty flat, pretty much the same percentage. And you have expenses, the expenditures. The green line is your instructional cost, that's dollar costs going up. But as a percentage of total, it's been always about half the budget. Employee benefits about a quarter of the budget. Debt payments, you can see that has gone down over the years, the dollar amount. And with that much in debt reserve, it should be in pretty good shape in future years. Next page, page 14. Is a comparative statement of net position. This is the GASB format. Assets, liabilities, deferred outflows of resources, deferred inflows of resources, and net position. Total net position at the end of 2020 is negative $23 million. and that's entirely due from that other post-employment benefits payable. That is retiree and current employee projected health insurance benefits that will be paid over their lifetimes. And that's a number that is reported on the financial statements. You are not allowed to put money away for that. It has to be funded over as it comes due. So that number you can see back in 2016 was 38 million, and in 2020 was 34 million. There is another schedule on the back that goes through that. That's the only interesting thing on that page. Next page is the comparative changes in net position. This is your income statement. For the GASB presentation, GASB puts, the Government Accounting Standards Board puts the expenses first to determine how much the organization is costing the public. So the total cost of Delaware Academy is $19.5 million, which includes depreciation. But of that 19.5, you have billings going out or grants for satisfying of $1 million. So total cost to taxpayers and tax sources is $18 million. You get those general revenues from real property tax and tax items and state sources, which is the state aid. So you have a total of 1.2 change positive, which is good. And that reduced your negative net position from last year from 24 million to 23 million negative. So you had a good year, and looks like you had a string of good years lately. Next page, these are excerpts from the financial statements. Endowment fund and the Kellogg funds. So there's all the activity from the brokerage statements and the private purpose trust. You have a total of 15.1 million in those funds. The net interest and dividends are $324,000. A little chart below is the fair value of the funds, that 15.1, and your cost basis of those funds are 13. So you have built-in gains of about $2 million. And the different types of investments there are invested in: exchange traded, corporate bonds, U.S. government securities, common stocks. So you have a lot of it skewed towards the exchange traded funds. Next page is 17. This is the capital assets. This is, we have additions. Basically, the construction in progress, this will agree to your capital projects fund. You have $134,000 worth of equipment that was placed in service. Total depreciation for the year, $1.1 million. That's charged in the GASB statement and not charged in the fund statement. The fund statement has a charge of $134,000. Next page is the schedule of bonds. Bonds payable at the beginning of the year, $12 million, $12.8 million. At the end of the year, $8.3 million. A total of $44 million at the end of the total non-current assets. Total serial bonds, $7.6 million. You have 2 serial bond issues. And you see a little schedule of your bond maturity. Total $7.6 million. And your total payments for 2021 will be $1.6 million on your bonds. Next page is the other post-employment benefits. Total OPEB, other post-employment, at the beginning of the year, 33 million. At the end of the year, it was 34 million. And this is actuarial calculation of those numbers. And there's a little schedule down below that says, how sensitive they are if the actuary chooses a different discount rate. A 1% increase will increase your OPEB. A 1% decrease in the discount rate will increase your OPEB to 40 million. And 1% increase in your healthcare trend rates that the actuary determines would mean it's $41.9 million. So that number can fluctuate quite a bit, causing the GASB statement to be big increases and decreases. The last page is the pension plan disclosure. Total contributions for the last 4 years are listed there, 606 for TRS and 332 for ERS. ERS is Employees Retirement System and TRS is Teachers Retirement System. The district share of the plan, this is your share of assets or liabilities in the pension plan. ERS is a liability, so if the plan went broke, you would have to belly up $1.8 million. If TRS went broke, you would get $888,000. The little schedule is reconciling deferred outflows and inflows. But since these plans are different year ends, there's little adjustments we had to do to bring their year end in line with yours, and that's the items there. And then we also have the same sensitivity to interest rate calculations down below. And so 1% decrease or 1% increase will change that plan drastically. That's it. I hope that was 15 minutes.
Any questions? Well, thank you very much. I
Okay,
appreciate all
if
your
you
work.
do have any questions, just shoot me an email.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, public comments. The Board of Education believes that I'm sorry, everyone. I'm not used to this format. Now we're gonna have public comments, if there are any. The Board of Education believes that open communication with our parents, students, teachers, personnel, and district residents is very important. For this reason, the board sets aside time at the beginning and end of each regular meeting for public comments. However, in order to focus on tonight's previously scheduled agenda, as a general rule, the board will not be able to respond to your comments and questions at this time. We may refer your comments and questions to the administration for follow-up, or we may add the subject of your comments to the agenda for a future meeting. Either way, please be assured that we welcome and take your comments seriously. The board asks that each person limit their comments to no more than 2 minutes, and in order for the district clerk to maintain accurate records of the meeting, each individual is requested to state his and her name and address. Any public comments? All right, thank you. And now on to routine matters. I'd like to approve the minutes of the regular meeting. A motion, please. And this is the meeting from September 28th, I apologize. Thank you, is that Tammy?
Kim.
Thank you, Kim. A second? Second. Oh, Sean got it first, thank you, Sean. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is carried. Personnel recommendations. A motion, please. So moved. Thank you, Tammy, and a second? Thank you, Seth. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is carried. We'd like to say congratulations to Herman Boogie for becoming coming into building maintenance mechanic. Yep. And we'd also like to welcome David Cicio. He's going to become our Director of Facilities for Buildings and Grounds. Welcome. And also we'd like to say goodbye. Oh, yes, please stand. I don't know if anyone can. Yes. Welcome. And we'll be saying goodbye to Mr. William Pacholi. He will be retiring as of December 29th. And thank you so much for all your years of service. We really appreciate it. we voted, right? Yes. Yes. All right, we're now going on to financial reports. A motion, please. So moved. Thank you, Tammy, and a second. Thank you, Kim. Any questions or comments about the financial reports? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is carried. CSE recommendations. A motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Seth, and thank you, Tammy, for the second. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is carried. And we are now going to reports, principal's monthly report. Mrs. Mabel, come on down. I don't know if you want to. It's up to you. Okay. Okay.
I don't have a whole lot this evening. We have, in the past month, done the assessment in ELA, English Language Arts and Math, for all of our hybrid students. Our Bulldog Gray students, we're still working on. It's a little more difficult to do over the internet, but we are working on it. We're getting it done, but they're not quite there yet. We will be sharing that data with the teachers and the parents in the very near future. And we'll be working on what interventions to offer through the classroom teacher, what interventions that maybe Mrs. O'Connell and Mrs. Beal can help us with. And we also have our licensed teaching assistants that will be helping us with some interventions this year. We created this year for open house online videos that were shared with each of the parents of the students. My PE department also shared ones, health, everybody shared videos with the parents. So even though they couldn't come in and see the teachers in person, they got to see what was going on in school via technology. Our remote pickups for our Bulldog Gray are going well. We've scheduled those the last 2 months, and one is scheduled again in November. And what's different in November is in October we were asked to please group our dissemination by family. And so this next round, we have a kindergarten and first grade day, a second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, but then we have one final day that's a family day, so that they'll be able to get all of their materials at once. And that was suggested by our parents. And as always at this time of year, I've started observation season, so we'll be in and out of classrooms quite a bit in the next few months. Any questions? Thanks so much.
Mrs. Robbins from our middle school, high school.
Good evening. I wanted to just give you some numbers because I've been inundated in my numbers lately in trying to make sure that we're accounting for all of our students and, where they're at and what delivery method they're receiving. So we have 406 students, 6 through 12, enrolled currently. And of those 406, we have 75 students who are remote only. And a good share of those are the middle school students. There are 5, in that 75, there are also 5 CTEP, because all of our CTEP students are remote this year. Their Delhi classes were online, so we decided that we would just continue that with all of their classes being online here. And of that 406, we have 90 students who are here every day. So right now, it seems as though I'm spending a lot of my time really working with the 70 students who are remote only. that seems to still be the, the toughest area to make sure that they're receiving what they need. And some of our middle school students are needing a little more, I think, a little more help than they received in that remote, method. So that's where the counselors and I are spending an awful lot of time, and we're trying to figure out ways to strategize and make sure that they are receiving the best education they can in that method. We too had the open house videos, and some of my teachers chose to put PowerPoint presentations together, maybe not, send a live video, but I thought that went really well. It was a great way to capture, what was going on in all those classes. And, for some teachers, that meant 4 or 5 different types of classes too, so they were great in getting that done. The end of the marking period, believe it or not, is already coming. This is the beginning of our 8th week. So November 13th is the end of our marking period, and I think that will be a real, it always is an assessment every year, even pre-COVID, as far as how we're doing. But I know the counselors and we meet every Tuesday morning, and we're already strategizing and looking at those grades. And we know that grades aren't the only thing, but I feel that this will be a very, crucial first quarter with everything that's been going on. Because as Mrs. Mabel said, a lot of it is just assessing what they may or may not have gotten last year with that 4-month break that we had. And with that, we have the half days coming up in November that teachers are asked to please have parent-teacher conferences. And this year, that will be done differently too. We're going to be having Google Meets with our parents and conference calls. So I've already asked teachers to make sure that they're starting to set those up and actually have them if they can see that the student's not doing as well as we would hope at this moment. So, and I'm also doing observations. I've already finished quite a few of my non-tenured observations on the first round, so that's going well right now. Any questions? Congratulations again for being such a wonderful board.
Thank you, Mrs. Okay, departmental reports. Buildings and grounds and business management will be done by Mr. Schultz this time.
Every year at this time, I want to thank the board, and I appreciate all that you do and support, and I also want to apologize for putting you through an audit report.
The report appreciation.
Yeah, thanks for everything, and here, take a nap.
Oh my God.
They're never exciting.
He's gone.
What's that? He's gone. Now for that matter, it was the architect last year that I think said something like, I don't know if I can match that. So, but I really want to say thanks, and they're not here, my staff, Nancy and Beth and Jen, they're tremendous. Everything in that report is really things that they do on a daily basis, so I really love that. David, I'd like to say thank you. I can sleep a lot better at night now, knowing that you're aboard. Became highly recommended, and I'm really grateful that you chose to come aboard also. So thank you. I look forward to tomorrow and many months and years to come. I don't have a ton. A little bit state aid, no big changes. October, November, so far so good. Like I stated before, though, we don't get a lot of aid this time of year, so we're not getting hit that hard. But they have not cut any more since August. September was intact, October's been intact, and they talked about November. I will say right now that early ERS reports going into next budget year is $42,000 increase. I expect TRS for teachers to go up as much as that or more. Talked today about health insurance. KCP is still very strong. I don't think we're gonna see an increase going into next year. They're still projecting out a couple of years, but we'll see. It's still a little early. Tax collection, we are almost exactly where we were last year. We still have 2.5 weeks. Yeah, so we're about 940,000 uncollected. Last year at the end of tax collection season, we ended up with 880 uncollected. So I project that to be around the same or even better. Capital project update. We met with the architects a couple weeks ago, then we met with the building project committee last week. The CWC funding at this point is not gonna happen. The New York City is still holding on to that money, DEP is holding on to that money at the city level. They think maybe January, maybe, I mean, a lot of maybes. So we're going out to bid here very shortly, probably about the next 4 to 6 weeks. We kind of had to make an administrative and executive decision to say, do we keep it in the bid process like we did before, or do we take it out? We decided to take it out completely. This way we don't go through a bid process, we award it to a contractor, and then all of a sudden it doesn't happen. So with that, there's gonna be a little revisions to the project itself, the biggest being paving. So CWC was gonna do a lot of the stormwater drainage and pipe underground, and when they dug all that out, they were gonna do a lot of the paving out front in the side parking lot over by the cafeteria. Unfortunately, and we were gonna pick up the rest, we have a map that we were showing some of the committee that our question was, well, can we consider doing our share of it? And I think their exact words were, you would look like you were crazy if you did that, only because it was just little pieces here that we were paving and they were paving the rest.
The architect's words, not the committee's words.
No, exactly, yes. But if the committee said that, they would be correct also. So that's gonna be different in the bid, that will be taken out. We're looking at the possibility of how we kind of capture that down the road, only because the paving here, the asphalt here is really, there's quite a few issues with it. We're hoping that, CVC will come around, I don't know when. It is, it's a project that has been approved. They could easily come through another 12 months, and if that's the case, the state has already approved it, we can move forward at that point. But right now, we're just pausing. There's really not much we can do. So reduces the site work substantially within the project. We'll still do some of the other site work, but the rest will just get pulled off. That's about it. Any questions?
Any questions, Mr.
Great, thank you.
Mrs. Newland, our food services. And thank you very much for our appreciation and our dinner. It was so nice.
Good evening. First, I would like to thank the board for your continued support for our program. I hope you enjoyed the refreshments. Out of my 7 employees, I now have 5 that are interested in cooking and able to cook as a backup to me. So I'm super excited for next year's staff. So, I hope you enjoyed the refreshments.
Yes.
So just very briefly, I've looked at, like Robin did, some of our numbers. And in the high school, we're averaging about 100 lunches every day, give or take. 30 breakfasts. Our breakfast right now, when the students come through the screening, we have a kiosk right where we have the refreshment set up. So we're still trying to get them into buying breakfast. So elementary, our numbers are up. We have averaging 100 breakfasts a day and 120 lunches. And then for our remote and hybrid meal pickups, as of this morning, we have 81 students participating in that program, which is picking up meals every Wednesday based on cohort. So it alternates different weeks. That's Team Maroon, Team Bulldog Gray, and Team White. So we keep trying to get the word out to get meals to those students that are still at home. So that's really all I have. Any questions?
No questions? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for keeping our children well. Mr. Petrilli, special education.
I don't have a whole lot, if I may, I just stay right here.
Yep, just
First of
speak
all, I'd like to thank,
loudly.
I'm sorry?
Speak loudly.
Yes, ma'am. First of all, I'd like to thank each one of you. Happy Board Appreciation Day, week, month, year. Really appreciate everything that you do for the community, for the district, and all our kids. I know it's a thankless job. Many of us have had those. So thank you again. As I noted in my monthly CSE report, we had either 15 meetings and or amendments, and that's kind of normal for the first part of the year. This included finding various programs for some of our kids, especially our new kids, our new transfer intake students, in addition to maybe making a few amendments to best meet the needs of our kids. I have also started with teacher evaluations and met with several teachers and spent at least a couple of hours of my day now in the classroom working with teachers and doing the observations. And I also would like, as I mentioned in my letter of resignation, I really wish that I encountered and met Delaware Academy. I'm getting choked up a little bit earlier in my life. Thank you all very much.
Mr. Patriziba from Technology.
Yes, good evening. As usual, technology has been busy for the past month. In addition to our normal duties, during the staff development day, I put on trainings, 3 different sessions for a couple different groups of teachers who actually had a moment and wanted to step out and learn some new things, and we had some participation there, and they came away with new ideas. We continue to work with our support and teachers, and more so with families and parents, and trying to work through their anxieties related to connecting and getting in for attendance and troubleshooting some of those a little bit harder to dig into problems that we experience on the technology side of things. And I think given the board support and, my department staff, we've been able to do that pretty well so far. Hope we can continue to support the district and the families and our students as best as we can going forward.
Any questions? Thank you very much, Lou.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. Mr. Versport, Transportation Department.
Yes, along the same thing as everyone else, doing a lot of driver training, evaluation, the annual evaluations, and reviews, and a lot of biannual testing. Today we did the DOT and SED required annual physicals, and I've got 3 drivers doing the required SED 30-hour training. We've already spent 2 weekends doing it, 10 hours each weekend, and next weekend is the last weekend.
Any questions for Mr. Versport? Thank you, Mr. Versport. All right, now our superintendent's report, Mrs. Miller. You gonna go up? Sure. Okay.
I know we've spent a lot of time tonight recognizing our Board of Education, they certainly deserve that. But what you may not also realize is that October is also a month of gratitude and thanks to our principals. October is National Principals Month as well. And I just want to start by, sharing also a debt of gratitude to Mrs. Mabel and Mrs. Robbins. They really did the unthinkable, the unspeakable, and not in a bad way this year. They were the backbone to reopening our schools, and they continue to be the backbone in keeping us open and fielding more questions than I do every day, if that's believable, from our parents and from our students and certainly from our teachers. They are here what seems like 24/7 in a tireless effort to keep us moving forward. So I just want to take a minute and publicly thank Mrs. Mabel and Mrs. Robbins. All right, just a few handouts I shared with our Board of Education that I wanted to go over and also just make our public aware of. This year, New York State has implemented what's called a remote snow day pilot in just this school year. And what the state education department has done is, in a sense, allow the district's flexibility to, instead of using snow days, to instead shift to a completely remote-only platform on those days that otherwise would have been indicated as snow days. There are pros and cons to this approach, and I was hoping we could have a little bit of a conversation tonight with our board regarding that. This does not automatically mean that we can take our 6 allotted snow days and say, okay, we're gonna go all remote, and then just redistribute those as days off in our school calendar. In fact, I would caution us against that approach unilaterally. When we think about a snow day, we think about everything involved. In a typical year, if we have a snow day, typically means there's a lot of snow, right? It's unsafe to travel. We have teachers at home now often with young ones at school. We have teachers at home now who need to plow out driveways, shovel sidewalks, who might need to do the same for their parents, who may not be unable to do that. And quite frankly, our teachers need a breather to take care of family matters in what otherwise would have been business we would conduct on snow days. Other districts are taking this a number of different ways. You know, one of the disadvantages that I feel to automatically rolling those over into days off within our school calendar, which of course, if we were to change the calendar, that would need to be voted on again by our board, is the fact that what if we did that, ran out of them, and then had a power outage, and did not have the ability to go completely remote. So we really need to think about all scenarios before deciding if we want to act on this and how we want to move forward. One other idea that I'd throw out there for your consideration is the possibility of perhaps using a couple of these days, rather than the entire 6, maybe 1 or 2, to let our community and families know well in advance that we're going to go all remote on a particular day, almost as our own pilot, and as a practice, so that if that did happen, in the case where, let's say, our infection rates rose throughout the region, and we were informed by the Department of Health that we need to shift to an all remote model, it might behoove us to take a practice run on that and make sure that we're ready to go to that platform. So that could be another idea on which to use some of that flexibility. But I'm interested in your thoughts as a board on that topic. The district has not made any decisions yet regarding this flexibility, but I wanted to have in your hands the language that came from New York State and any thoughts that you might have as a public discussion on that topic.
Kelly, would we have to take any kind of a day to go all remote? Try that? And would that have to be designated as anything at this point, just because we do have that flexibility as it stands right now, right?
So that's correct. So Trustee Kate asked can we just make a decision to go remote on any given day?
To trial.
As a trial. That indeed we could do that because that still counts as a day of instruction, provided that we are providing that for all of our students anyways. So we can certainly plan that, and not use it in that way.
So the snow days really could be disaster days almost. I mean, they're like if you lose power, hurricane, tornado, flood, those kinds of things. Is that?
They're really emergency days, not necessarily snowy.
Right. Correct. Yes. No, that's right. That's right. Yes. Yep. And you're absolutely right. The colloquial term is snow days, but technically they are emergency days built into the calendar for any of those scenarios.
So by saying that, then we would want to keep them as somebody designated, the teachers do not have to instruct on those days because it could be an emergency and we need those built in.
That's, yes, absolutely my point.
Yeah.
Now, what are the chances that we will utilize all 6 in any given year due to an emergency? If we look at past practice, could be, could not be, October storm, November storm, any of those pieces, we don't wanna be in that situation.
But if we take snow off the table,
Mhm.
you probably wouldn't use 6 for sure, because snow is the driver for literally all of
For
them.
the majority of those emergency days, there's the snow.
So you could keep them in, reserve them, and if we get to a point in the year, toward the end of the year where we haven't used any for an emergency, then they're give backs.
Then we could absolutely consider
Just the
those
way we
give
do it.
backs.
Just the way we do it.
Just the way we do it.
Exactly the way that we do that now, that's right. We are not obligated to utilize all 6 as give backs. This board could decide to use 2 as give backs, or whatever the board decides to do, in that case.
I would just like to comment that I think we're concerned about our students' mental health, and I think we're forgetting that, our teachers kind of fall into that bucket too. We're asking them to do an awful lot, and I honestly think that the emergency days should stay emergency days, so they get a little mental health break that they pretty much need.
Also, our teachers they're set up to work here right now. So if they have to worry about an emergency day working from home every single winter night, or they would have to be ready to every morning, and that just doesn't seem, I don't think that seems fair either to our teachers.
My view is keep it the way it's always been.
Well, what do you mean by that then? If it snows hard, we don't do anything, or do you mean
Right.
Yes.
We have the snow day. The way it's always been.
you have a snow day, that means no online, that means,
No, everybody's home, taking a break.
Because the teachers aren't ready to work from home every single day for 4 months. All of their stuff is here. So they would have to bring everything.
That decompression day.
They do, trust me, they do.
Sean, do you have a comment?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to echo Tammy and Beth, what you guys are suggesting. It is, as a kid, something to look forward to. Let's be serious, And it's, you taking something away from a child's experience that certainly. So I think we definitely need to keep them. Ellie, I like what you suggest about using them as an experiment on their own. Maybe 1, or maybe 2, or whatever that becomes. But I caution that we do that too soon in the school year. Because we couldn't do that. And we, maybe February or something like that, we plan for something like that. Would be my suggestion. And expecting maybe one more storm or something, at some point in the year, that makes sense. But to take them away, I think would be doing a huge disservice to all kids.
And if we take them away.
And teachers, and especially that part about putting people, the reason snow days are to keep people home, and keep them from potentially having accidents or exposure or whatever the case, so. Yes, by all means, have snow days, stay home, be safe, get a break. Yes.
what's your assessment, so question, are teachers able to, what are your thoughts about their preparation, they're able to switch that quickly? I guess we can ask you that question.
So the question is, to what degree do I feel that if we needed to all of a sudden pivot and tomorrow go all remote, are our teachers?
Just for a day.
Are our teachers prepared for that, for a day? Or theoretically, the governor could say tonight, we're all going, and we don't have control over that. We've not practiced that yet. Do I think our teachers have the skill to be able to do that? Absolutely. I think we're in a better position now than certainly we were last spring to be able to do that. But does that mean that they have the technology at home, without prior notice? Do they have what they need, and do they feel completely prepared at this point? Probably not. So I think it probably would behoove us to think about doing a practice day of that sort. It doesn't necessarily need to burn one of
Yeah,
those
that's
snow
what I
days to
did.
do that. I just would want to be very planful in doing so, because it's not just our teachers that we need to give the advance notice to, it's our families who need to prepare for childcare. And it's probably not a bad idea for our families to be prepared for that either, and to be thinking about that, so that we're not just bringing that on, in a surprise kind of situation.
And I think this started, just had like a early dismissal for like an emergency practice dismissal. Can we do that?
Yes.
Yeah. You don't even know, these weeks are months long this year. No, they are. So, I just lost my thought, I'm really sorry.
Yeah, there are a lot of different ways, Kim, I think,
Oh,
we
that's
can
what I'm
approach
saying,
a
I don't know,
practice,
I mean,
right?
I just feel, I understand, but I don't really see that there's a big need for it, that's just my opinion, unless, we can call it something else as well, check out something, another box with it.
Need for what, Kim?
To have a practice emergency day, like stay home, like, I don't think we need to practice if we have to shut down for COVID, we did that already. We know what it's like, it'll be a little more organized the next time than it was the
What's
last
different
time.
now are our expectations, the parents' expectations, of our state ed department, our continuity of instruction, all of those components that are different now than they were in the spring.
I just don't know how parents will feel about it, that's all, I'm just not sure that.
Another on the devil's advocate with that, along with Kim, I don't know, we're gonna lose another day of instruction for
I
that.
know, I don't think,
I understand, that's just a thing to get.
And another thought with the, like, having the teachers actually teach remote on a snow day, they're not even gonna know, it's not like New York State says, you're not, on March 13th or on, September, whatever, November 20, whatever, that's the last day. And then, schools figure it out, come and get stuff and go back home, but if it's a snow day, you don't know your phone rings in early in the morning. It's not like you have advance warning the night before, and there's a lot of times where we have a delay that then turns into a snow day. So I just don't get how anybody's supposed to have their stuff unless they take everything home every night, like all their electronic stuff home every night in case you get called at 6 o'clock in the morning for an emergency day. I don't get that. And I'm just, people need the breather, I'm sorry, kids, parents, teachers, all everywhere.
So what I'm hearing the board say is that there's a desire to maintain our traditional approach to use of emergency days. If we get towards the end of the year and that we find that we have not used them, or depending on how many we've used, we might consider redistributing those or giving them back in a less traditional sense. Also, if we find quite the opposite, that we're in a situation where there is an emergency and for some reason we exceed those days, then that also gives us the flexibility to perhaps say, all right, we know that a huge storm is coming, or we know if we're able to anticipate something. So be prepared, because we are able to give advance notice that tomorrow we will be going all remote. The flexibility also gives us the ability to be, to use our foresight, right? If we know that something is coming our way. So I think that the flexibility is good. Do I think that we should take advantage of that and plan and redistribute those days and then be in a position where we have to take them back? I would not advise on that. So I think that we're all on the same page in terms of how to move forward, and we can certainly revisit this conversation, on a monthly or a bi-monthly basis as we proceed through the coming months. So I appreciate the board's conversation on that, and I appreciate your feedback. The next piece that I had passed out was a release from the governor on October 21st. You may have heard in the news about the New York microcluster strategy. Was there really only one page? There wasn't entire packets.
I don't, unless I did
The
it wrong.
second thing that I asked you to pick. Oh, it's still right there.
Oh,
Thank you.
sorry.
All right, they're coming your way now. It's the second pile of handouts. I apologize, my fault. I wasn't clear when I asked Trustee Kennedy to help me out in the distribution of these.
The teachers at Delaware Academy know what really happened.
So this is publicly available information on the New York State's website, on Governor Cuomo's website. It provides his executive summary on what he's referring to as micro clusters. So, ladies and gentlemen, we do have another grid or another matrix of decision making that we must base decisions on regarding moving forward through COVID. We can also place this on our website after tonight's meeting. And at the pleasure of the board, it may also make sense to attach this as an addendum to our reopening plan. Basically what this does is it places all of the counties in New York State into one of 4 tiers based on population. Tier 1 being the most populous counties in the state, Nassau, Suffolk, Westchester, also the big 5 cities in New York State based on population. We are located in Tier 4 because our county is one of the least number of people in terms of population and population density. So on the horizontal axis of this matrix are also the target metrics for whether you are deemed a yellow zone, orange zone, or a red zone. So you may have heard in some of his briefings, it talks about in red zone areas, what the daily or the rolling average positivity rates are, and what that means for schools, and under which conditions being in a red or yellow zone primarily would automatically trigger a closing or moving to a remote-only model. For those who are deemed in a yellow zone, and just to put into some context, Delaware County would have to hit a threshold of 4% infection rate to be deemed a yellow zone. Currently, we are below 1% in both Delaware County and in the town of Delhi in terms of our infection rate. Our neighbors in Shenango County are much closer to that 4%. So this has been a lot of conversation at the superintendent level throughout the BOCES. However, in Delaware County, we are the least affected and right now the least at risk. So that being said, if we hit that 4% in a yellow zone because of our population, then we would have an option to begin pool testing 20% of our population. Initially, we were told that this could be state funded, and we're finding quickly that those funds are quickly being depleted or not available at all. And a second layer has been to rely on partnerships with healthcare networks, for example, Bassett, or those of us who have school-based health clinics. However, if you speak to them, they too are in short supply of testing or the fiscal means to support this level of pool testing. Does not automatically rule that out, but I will tell you that that this district alone, if we were looking at pool testing, the finance associated with that would be untenable. If we find ourselves in this position, it may make sense to go all remote, like many of our neighbors have done in response to that. Again, I'm giving this to you for your awareness. This is a publicly available document. I just wanted you to have the information. I do not believe that we will be at the point anytime soon of making this decision. And on that note, I think that we can also attribute the fact that our district is one of the few that continues to stay open at this point and true to our models because we have not had any COVID infection here at Delaware Academy. Knock on all the wood you like, I'm gonna brag all day about that.
Thank you to
Yes,
everyone
it's
in the
great.
community.
No, it's really great, because I don't think that will jinx us. I think that this is because we've been doing our due diligence here at DA. Our students have been towing the line and complying and wearing their masks. Our teachers have been towing the line and using great professional judgment in terms of mask breaks. We have taken a slow roll in really making sure that we've been safe as we've slowly reopened our athletics, our extracurricular activities. Every decision that we've made has been calculated to ensure continued safety. Because I'm not interested in getting that call from the Delaware County Department of Health in the middle of the night to inform me that we have a case. That being said, I'm not naive. We are not immune. We have to continue to do our due diligence and continue to keep us safe. So thank you to everybody who's been doing their part to help out with that. And believe me, as much as I would love to be up here saying it's time to come back full time, I don't see that happening in this school year, to be realistic. If for some reason they do, awesome. If I look at the trends around our state and around the region, if I had to predict, I may say that if we are surrounded by other districts in other regions that are having real high infection rates, our governor may step in and make the decision for us before these metrics even begin to apply. So on that note, we do need to be prepared to shift to a remote-only learning model if and when we get to that. It would make sense to do a practice run, just to make sure that not only we're prepared for that, but that our families at home are prepared for that, with as much notice as we can possibly give them. So on that note, are there any questions about this metrics document or our approach?
No, remind me, if we have a positive here at the school, our procedure is what?
So if we have one positive case here at the school, what is our procedure? In our reopening plan, we also do have our own local matrix of decision-making that I would refer you to generally, but the reality is, and what I've been witnessing in my peers across the region, is that I'll be immediately contacted by the Department of Health if a confirmed case. Now, suspected cases don't trigger that plan. Once I get word of a confirmed case, I'm automatically following the lead of our Delaware County Department of Health. And so they will lead the contact tracing. We will supply them with all the necessary information they will need. Our principals have already been talking to our teachers about what kind of information they may need to have right at the ready, should we engage in contact tracing. And then the Department of Health tells us what our response is. If we're looking at a 24-hour closure, if we're looking at a longer closure, if we're looking at a closure in one building and not the whole district. So it could be any combination of those, but we follow the lead of the Department of Health. And then, of course, as soon as I know that information, that is communicated far and wide throughout the district with information as soon as we have that available for public consumption.
What's the role of the local department of health in testing that we're supposed to be doing?
The local Department of Health is supposed to support us in that, also in terms of helping us with the supplies necessary to do that. But I will tell you, I talk with them every day, and they receive about as much information as we do on a regular basis from the New York State Department of Health. They've been a great ally. All of that being said, that is in no way to discredit or to put down what that partnership has been. And we're truly navigating all of this together. Okay. That being said, the last thing I have is I have spent last week and all day today in classrooms with our juniors and seniors. Mrs. Robbins and I went into all the participation in government classes last week, and we started talking to our seniors about what their experience has been so far this year. And we're soliciting feedback, and we are listening to try to understand what their concerns are and what they want voiced to our teachers and to our community and to our administrators and to our families in terms of their experience. What prompted this was the 10-week look-back period. So if we remember during reopening, that 10-week look-back was intended to be a stop point in which we looked at all of our programs in terms of their enrollment. And it would be an opportunity for our families who are all remote to say, okay, I'm ready to come back, or vice versa. But what we have found is that leading up till now, we had families who had some pretty significant emergency situations where we were forced to make some of those decisions sooner rather than later, which is fine. We need to be flexible, we need to support our families where we can, where we have space, and where it makes sense to do so. So because we've been doing that right along, we are pushing that 10-week point, and while we have a little flexibility, it's certainly not what we had expected. So this first 10-week point, I will tell you, will probably fail to meet some expectations in terms of the degree to which we can truly shift kids around. We are not in a position where we can bring more kids back full-time currently. I can't wait until we are. I do fully recognize, and I get emails on a regular basis from parents imploring us to please have we considered every angle possible. So what I would like to do, I've been hearing from our seniors. Today I went into several of Mr. McCory's 11th grade US history classes and did a lot of the same things. And to be completely honest, some of the greatest ideas are coming from our students in terms of things that we could consider changing for the better moving forward. I've also been hearing from many of our teachers, and I'll be holding a couple optional faculty meetings this week to hear more from our teachers. And then our Board of Education has agreed to hold a special Board of Education meeting next Wednesday, November 4th. And similar to what we did during reopening, where we had our public sessions and heard from our community, we'd like to do that again, because that's the next stakeholder group that we need to hear from. So that will be a special board meeting where I will be sharing some of the feedback from our teachers and from our students, and then also just listening to the concerns from our community and answering whatever questions I can. And what the information that's gleaned from that may help to inform, maybe some changes as we move forward, but the reality is we are ever changing. We are ever changing and always open to feedback. And where it makes sense to do so, we will implement those changes. So in that presentation on the 4th, I will be sharing just a lot of specific examples of what those have looked like so far this year. And then also trying to bring us to really a space of understanding where we're really listening to each other and hearing and seeing through the lens, walking in the shoes of other groups. We may not have all the answers, we're certainly not going to make everybody happy, but we can begin to understand each other a little bit better. And only through that understanding can we possibly continue to move forward together as a district and get to a place where this is maybe a little bit more palatable for everybody. So more information on that, and we will also be publicly advertising that meeting for Wednesday, November 4th. Yes, that will be, a back and forth session, just like last time. Just like our reopening meetings.
Remote too, or no, just they can show up to ask the questions?
So that will be live streamed, just like that, just like we did for reopening. And if people have those questions, we'll be able to scroll those like we did last time, so that people can ask those, and I'll do my best to keep up with them. Any other questions on any of that? All right, thank you, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mrs. Zimmerman. Okay, policy review and adoption, this is the third reading and adoption of proposed policy for staff and student social media. Motion, please. Thank you, Tammy, and a second. Thank you, Jan. Any questions or comments about the policy?
I have a question. There was number 3, guidance regarding professional media sites. And then it said E, no personally identifiable information may be posted by employees or professional social media sites, including students' photographs where consent of the student's parents has been denied. And I guess my question is, how does the parent deny it? How do they know?
We send home a form at the beginning of every year.
Okay.
That is really our public release. So if parents don't want their students' pictures to appear in any public presentations or documents, they can deny that consent.
Okay, I've seen that, but I didn't know.
Yep, that's what it is.
Okay, and also, when it said parents, should we also add parents and legal guardians?
Yes.
Because we just have parents.
Yep. Got that note, Mrs. Temple? Yeah, all right. Thanks for catching that.
Yeah, thank you. Any other, Mr. Levy?
Just for clarification, though, this, you said this is the third reading of that?
Yes.
So this is the final?
This is it. We're adopting it right now. Okay.
We're adopting it with that
With
addition of the
the
guardian.
guardians, yes. All right, any more questions or comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is carried. Oh, sorry. We don't have any old business, so moving on to new business. Approved transfer of fund requests, motion please. Thank you, Tammy, and a second.
Second.
Thank you, Seth. Any questions or comments about that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is carried. I'm gonna do the next individually. Accept donation from Hannaford Helps. This is for the Board of Education is accepting a donation from Hannaford Helps in the amount of $330 to be used for elementary materials and supplies. A motion, please? Thank you, Kim, and a second?
Second.
Tammy, thank you. Any questions or comments? Thank you very much for the Hannaford Helps. Soon you'll, for all of the donations we're about to get, thank you, Tammy. She will be writing a thank you note from the school district. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is carried. We will also be accepting a donation from the Southern Tier Chapter of Non-Knights MC, a Motorcycle Club, LLC. They have donated 550 face masks, and they are the Southern Tier Chapter of the Non-Knights, and we appreciate those masks. A motion, please? Thank you, Tammy, and a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kim. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? And the motion is carried. We'll also accept a donation from the Women's for Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity. We are accepting a donation for the not-for-profit Women for Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity in the amount of $800 for the Media Library Specialist to purchase books at her discretion across the 3 school libraries, which will provide students with greater access to diverse voices, protagonists, and situations unique to minorities. Any questions or motion, please? Thank you, Tammy. And a second, thank you, Seth. Any questions or comments?
Just want to thank this group for this generous.
Yeah, sure.
I just want to take a minute to publicly thank this group for this donation and to recognize that their recommendation in terms of what they are looking for in terms of the selection of books is certainly taken into consideration. And ultimately, our school librarian and our principals will be reviewing those to add to our catalogs. This is very timely, as we are also here oftentimes, we are excising materials that can no longer be used in our libraries, as you will see shortly. So this is very timely, and I can't thank you enough for adding to the diverse selection of books for our students to read that are also developmentally appropriate. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion is carried. And as Mrs. Zimmer just alluded to, we have a request to remove books from inventory by the librarian, Mrs. Oliver. A motion, please?
So,
Thank you, Seth, and a second. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Kim, sorry, Kim. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? And the motion is carried. Again, we are now doing back to public comments. Does anyone have any public comments for us tonight? All right. Board comments. You can start with Seth. Would you like to add anything?
Oh, I just want to thank Kelly for meeting with high school kids. I think that's great. And I'm super excited to hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
So, you'll hear it. I think it's wonderful. Thank you. Absolutely.
I'll just briefly touch on, we had policy committee last week, which is myself, Kim, and James Tucker. And we met to give our community policy its final review. And we really just made some minor tweaks, took out some redundancies and made sure that it was something that fit in to the school with our current practices and even things that we really felt were necessary and things that we could do and uphold. And so we were happy with those changes. They were minor. And we reviewed our first 20 policies in the handbook. And this is our, oh gosh, 56 go around with it. But it's really helpful, especially for our newer members, to get a good feel for what goes on behind the scenes and what governs a lot of what we do. And again, there were, a few questions and some very minor tweaks. And we will meet again, next month, the day is 18. But we did prepare a schedule of meetings, so between now and the end of the year, and those will be public, going forward, we do it on a monthly basis. And I want to thank everybody for the appreciation. It's,
Yes, it was a nice surprise, thank you very much.
very nice to, I mean, you feel like you're appreciated, but this sort of says, yeah, you are. So this is great, thank you all very much.
Thank you. Trustee Letty? Yeah, what the heck? It works it back to me.
Trustee Tucker and I met with Kelly and Carrie as the Capital Projects Committee. And as Carrie said, the project will be going out in bid shortly. He explained the CWC portion and how that might affect the overall project. And bottom line is it's going out to bid, we're gonna get the numbers and we're gonna figure out from there which parts get in or don't get in. We won't really know until the numbers come out. So that will be happening. And I just wanted to make a quick mention, I really appreciate Mrs. Temple in the minutes making note of the reports, the principal's reports. I think that'd be very helpful to the public in looking back potentially and remembering meetings or giving you an update or whatever. It's just another source of communication. Oh, perfect.
Thank you, Trustee.
Oh, thanks for stuff.
Trustee Tucker?
Yeah, I don't really have much. I'd like to say thanks to everybody that made all this happen for us. Otherwise, I'm still taking it all in and trying to do as much as I can.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Mrs. Kelly?
I think Seth and I would like to report on the athletic liaison committee. Seth, will you start?
Yeah, sure. So we met last week, and what was interesting and important, I think, to learn is how the state's approach to athletics continues to evolve. And what I really appreciate is Delaware Academy has taken a leadership role within our league in developing. First, it was an online questionnaire that was sent out by Kelly and Jeff, essentially, with some questions that we had about other schools and their feelings about whether they wanted to kind of go through some steps in creating criteria for how we would approach reopening, if there were cases in any of the schools and that kind of thing, because it is important to define all those variables before we get there, and one thing happens and we're not ready to make any decisions and we just sort of shut down. So that survey's gone out, and the responses really do indicate a desire of the other schools to really partner with us to develop what that all would be. And so we would have the best chance of having some kind of a season or seasons, because we would be prepared with our steps should there be any issues. So I really applaud Kelly and Jeff, your efforts and leadership in doing that, while we wait for the rest of the kind of determinations at a state level. That all being said, though, that we've defined a way to have kids be active, especially in the high school right now, knowing that we're trying to sort of move to the middle school based on capacity, I think is great. And knowing that, within the network that my boys hear about from other schools, I think we're one of the few schools that are doing that. I think more are considering and kind of watching what happens at Delhi, but based on our success and the feedback so far, it looks like things have gone pretty well. So I want to applaud that, and certainly the efforts of the coaches to do that without even really batting an eye. So,
I was just gonna say, Jeff is on a subcommittee to make the metrics for this MAC league so that we will be uniform, so that what triggers Delhi will then be triggering the same thing would happen at any of the schools in our league, which is a good thing. And I think it's been a positive influence on all the kids and the coaches too. And yes, it's obvious how much work Mr. Farrar as well as Kelly has put into this. So we thank you. And like every other board member, I thank you for all the wonderful goodies. My family and I will enjoy it. Grandkids too, I can see it. So thank you.
Thank you both.
Thanks one more time though for, may none of us ever have bad breath again, Kelly.
No, that wasn't me, that was Mrs. Robbins.
Oh, that's,
So-
okay, should we take a hint there, Mrs. Robbins?
It's for our own selves
Oh, it's
now.
we
It's
can
our
chew
own
inside the
selves.
mask?
Yes.
One more thing I did want to add is that I'm really happy and I'm glad that we've embraced this particular chart. And the reason I say it is because it's important for our area, because it gives us a chance to be sub-differentiated as a non-populated area. And I think what a lot of us have been saying from the start is that upstate New York is not all the same place. I mean, there are cities in upstate New York that represent different challenges and things than in our area. And this differentiation allows us to have things potentially happen and go on or not based on our own metrics and our own population base. So this is a good thing for us. While it certainly gives us a framework for what we can and can't do, I hope that we can continue to follow it and that the state follows it. So, and again, thank you for everything. Wonderful appreciation. It'll all go to great use.
The athletic committee just reminded me too, just one more comment for the public. Some of you may have noticed the beautiful yellow goalposts out on our football field. It is really, really fancy. It is not ours to keep. Sportsfield Specialties actually contacted Mr. Schultz to say, could we please use your beautiful facility to take some promotional pictures for this cool new goalpost that we've developed. I went out and watched it actually be raised with the turn of a key, and it's quite a sight to behold. They had drones that were capturing some pictures and so forth for their promotional items. On that note, Sportsfield Specialties, they really do a lot for our district in terms of donating of time and resources. Unfortunately, that awesome goalpost is not one of them. But I wanted to clarify because some people were questioning whether or not the district was actually purchasing that and moving forward with that expense, given our current COVID-19 situation and looming stated aid reductions. So I just want to take a minute and clarify that, no, we did not buy that goalpost. We're doing that company a favor by allowing them to shoot some promotional material on our property. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Zimmerman. I also want to thank everyone for the goodies. The pumpkin is awesome. The maple syrup is wonderful. All of it wonderful. Thank you so much, because it's been a rough, little bit of time for all of us. But I do appreciate our faculty and staff, our community, our students especially, for endeavoring to persevere through this whole situation. And there will be a light at the end of the tunnel, but we just have to make it through. So thank you to the board for all of your work, and thank you to Mrs. Zimmerman and to our administration. So I'm gonna close the meeting. Our upcoming meeting dates, Wednesday, we have that special meeting, November 4th at 6 PM right here in the auditorium. It will also be online. You may also submit questions during the meeting live, and Mrs. Zimmerman and we will all try to answer them for you. Yes. Our next meeting will be Monday, our next regular board meeting is Monday, November 16th at 5 PM. That will be back in the media center. And we will start that at 5 as an executive session, and then we will open to the public at 6. And any questions, please send them to the district clerk, Mrs. Sue Temple. We will also now be entering into executive session to discuss the evaluation of a particular employee. A motion to enter executive session. Thank you, Lucy and Seth. And thank you all for joining us, and we'll hopefully see you all on the 4th. Thank you.
All right, we're clear.
Good, thank you, Luke.